My dad never wanted biological children because he came from an FLDS family, a generational FLDS family. If you don't know what FLDS is, it's like a fundamentalist, incestuous, polygamous cult, basically. And on his biological dad's side, they were one of the founding families for the specific group that they came from. And so they had been partaking in these family activities for literal generations. It was to the point that his grandparents on that side were uncle and niece and related in three other ways. It was getting very the hills have eyes over on that family line. Luckily for my dad, though, my grandma took him and she escaped when he was just a few days old. She married somebody outside of the cult. That's who she raised my dad with. But my dad always knew who his biological father was and what they were doing in that family, which was each other, obviously. And so he knew from a very young age that he was never going to have biological kids. But the thing my dad wanted more than anything in this life was to be a father, was to have a family. And so the way he was able to accomplish that was to marry a single mother with kids and then to raise her children. But I never knew how my parents met until I was like maybe 19 or 20 years old. And I needed new brakes on my car, and my dad had this friend with an upholstery shop who could also do car work, and he was like, oh, take your car out there and Hector will fix it up for you. And so I get there and I get out of the car and Hector's like, oh man, this brings up old memories. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he told me that back in the day he was standing out there with my dad one day and they saw my mom walk into the shop next door, and my dad looked at my mom with my little brother and no ring, and then looked at Hector and said, that's gonna be my wife one day. And sure enough, he scooped that lady up, he married her, and then he was a father to all three of her children. Before my dad was killed, he obsessively played this Star Trek fleet game. Now, when I say obsessively, I mean that sometimes this man would play it on his phone and his tablet at the exact same time. He was also so into the game that he downloaded Discord, created an account, and joined their community so that he could make friends who also play the game because he didn't know any people who played it in real life. And he ended up making this like group of friends that he would regularly play the game with. Now, I mean, he played this so intensely with them that he would set reminders and alerts every single day, so he knew when he needed to go in and join his little clan so that they could go out and do whatever they were doing. And he would literally put in earbuds and communicate with these people through Discord. That's how into this game my dad was. And when he was hit by that truck, it completely destroyed his phone. So we had absolutely no access to his phone or anything on it or any of his accounts because we needed two-factor codes that were being sent to the phone that was destroyed. And today I got a SIM card in the mail with my dad's phone number on it, and I put it in a burner phone so that I could start getting the two-factor codes and gaining access to his accounts. And so I got access to his main email account, and when I got in there, he had dozens of emails from his Discord server of all of his online friends wondering where he is because they have no idea that their online friend was hit and killed by a truck driver last month. I have a grandma and great grandma that are still alive. On my dad's side, not my mom's side. Her mom and grandma killed themselves. Anyways, my dad's mom is alive but not well. She's in her 80s. She's in a wheelchair and she has suffered a ton of loss in this lifetime. Her dad died from a heart attack when she was a teenager. She had a little brother named Larry who got like meningitis or something when he was a toddler. And my great grandma didn't take him to the hospital soon enough, and he suffered some type of like neurological disorder because of it. It made his brain stop advancing, and then he ended up getting hit and killed by a bus. And then her first husband died before I was even born, and then she had two sons who passed away. The first one was my dad's little brother, and he drowned in a hotel pool. And then the second one was my dad, who was hit and killed by a negligent truck driver last month. And last weekend was her mom's birthday party. My great grandma, she was having a birthday party, and all of the family was in town. And this is the first time that the family has been in town since my dad was killed. And I was sitting on the deck at a table with my mom and my grandma, and people kept coming up and hugging them. And somebody stopped and hugged my grandma and was like, how are you doing? And she was like, not great. I miss my kids. And then she looks at my mom and she's like, but whenever I'm feeling too down about how bad my life is, I think of you, Patty. And I remember it can get worse. And that makes me feel a little bit better about my own life. I come from a family of generational bikers. I could literally show you pictures of my grandparents and my great grandparents on motorcycles. Actually, I'm going to. This is my great grandma Eva. This is her daughter, my grandma Dolly, and my grandpa Ron. Also, here's my parents. So because I come from a family of generational bikers, they're all very safe riders and very cautious about everything. But regardless of how cautious you are riding, there are still negligent drivers out there. So they protect their family's future. And one of the things they do to do that is they all have accidental death policies. Now, luckily for my family, we've never had to use one up until recently when my father was hit and killed by a negligent driver last month. And my mom filed to get it. And they contacted her and they're like, well, we need a copy of his death certificate that shows that this was accidental. And so my mom sends them a copy of my dad's death certificate, which shows it was an accidental motorcycle versus truck accident and that my dad died from blunt force trauma complications. And then she messaged my mom back and was like, okay, well, now I need a copy of the police report so that I can see that he was not at fault for this accident. And my mom was like, oh, well, I don't have a copy of that, because we don't let her have a copy of that. The police report has, somebody had a dash cam and they recorded my dad getting hit by a speeding truck. My dad flew off of his motorcycle with such force that his boots flew off of his fucking feet. Then the cops took like stills of that happening and they attached the photos of those stills into the police report. So there are literal photos of my father being shot through the fucking air in that police report. So we don't let my mom have a copy of it. And so she was like, okay, you need to contact my daughter. My daughter will give you a copy. So I sent her the copy of it. The copy includes all of this information. It also includes that the other guy is at fault. It is still an open criminal investigation because he's being charged with vehicular manslaughter for killing my father, right? And she was like, okay, this is great. Now I need a copy of the autopsy. Why the fuck do you need a copy of my dead dad's autopsy? You already have his death certificate that shows that he was killed in an accidental manner by blunt force trauma. You have a copy of the police report that shows that he was not at fault in any way for his death. Why on earth could you possibly need his autopsy? And she told me that it was because she needs to make sure that he wasn't under the influence of illegal substances at the time that he was killed. Why? He wasn't at fault for the accident. Also, my parents don't do drugs. My dad doesn't even fucking drink. I can tell you the last time that my dad has had a drink, actually, and it was 2016, a decade ago. We got off of a boat in Mexico. There was a guy standing there at a booth selling shots of tequila, and my husband convinced him to take a tequila shot with him for their first steps into Mexico. That was the last time that my dad had any alcohol. And she was like, well, we also need to check for any kind of medication that he could have been on at the time of the accident. My dad didn't die on the scene. He was life flighted to a hospital, and he was on life support and a ventilator where he underwent a dozen surgeries and was pumped full of pain medication because his organs were all slowly dying. He was in constant pain the entire time. So that report is going to show all the shit that was pumped into my dad so you can find an excuse to not pay it out. Like, this is absolutely fucking nuts. Allstate already told me that my dad's life was only worth $50,000 to them. Now, Omaha is trying to avoid paying out the accidental death insurance on an accidental death. At what point does the corporate greed stop and companies start caring about their customers again? A girl on here complaining about the Celeste and David trial. She was complaining about how David's already being offered plea deals and made a comment about how she hates when people are offered plea deals when they don't have anything to offer in exchange for it, like the location of a dead body. She said that if they already have all this evidence against them, they should be forced to stand trial and all the evidence against them should be revealed. I have never blocked anybody faster before in my entire fucking life. That was the most true crime centric take that I have ever fucking heard. Very obvious that this girl has never had somebody she loved or cared about be the victim of a violent crime or be killed, because she would know that a trial is not meant to help the victim. It's not meant to help the victim's family. It's not meant to benefit the victim or their family. It's meant for the complete opposite. A trial is the right of the criminal. It is the right of the criminal to a fair trial so that they can try to prove their innocence, to try to prove that they are less deserving of a harsher punishment and try to explain why that is. You know how their legal team's going to do that? They're going to drag the victim and the victim's family through the mud, through the fucking trenches, as if they haven't already been through it. They're going to get to relive that event every single court date for probably years throughout the duration of that trial. And I know this because when my grandpa was killed, one of his killers took a plea deal, the other one rejected every single plea deal and took it to trial, and they would blow up photos of my grandpa with his brains blown out and put those in the courtroom for my entire family to have to look at. They said such vile things about my grandpa to try to paint him like somebody who deserved what he got so that his killer would get a lighter sentence. My mom still wakes up screaming to this day over things that she heard and saw in that courtroom. My dad was killed last month, and I hope every single day that this dude takes a plea deal so I don't have to go sit in that courtroom and watch a video of my father flying through the air to his death. I already saw my mom crying hysterically over my dad's dead body. I don't need to see the event that caused it to, but I am so sorry if plea deals are a negative to you and they're interrupting your entertainment.